What's up, Arc Junkies? Yesterday, we celebrated Labor Day. It was also the 6-year anniversary of the Arc Junkies Podcast. But I digress. I know the show's downloaded and streamed all over the world, and I really appreciate that. But the majority of my audience is in the United States. I also know that about 60 different countries celebrate Labor Day, but most of them celebrate it in May. Either way, regardless of which side of the pond you hail from, chances are, if you're listening to this show, you're a blue-collar worker, and Labor Day is a day for all of us to celebrate. Labor Day isn't just another day off work, or the symbolic end of summer. It's a day dedicated to the tireless spirit and determination of the blue-collared workers who built and continue to build the foundation of our great nation. It's a day we honor the sweat, the perseverance, the ingenuity, and the resilience of the hands that have molded, repaired, and crafted the world around us. These hands belong to those who face the early mornings, endure the long shifts, and push through life's challenges to provide for their families and communities. As we enjoy this Labor Day, let's remember and salute the spirit of every worker, and recognize that every brick laid, every column welded, and every bridge built is a testament to our unyielding commitment. Here's to you, the heartbeat of our nation. Happy Labor Day.
Hey, Kevin with the Welding Business Owners Podcast and JMW Fabrication here. I want to let you know that we are going to be hosting the first annual Fabricator Olympics, sponsored by Lincoln Electric, October 7th. This isn't your typical welding competition. This is for straight-up Class A fabricators. So if you think you've got what it takes to be America's best fabricator, go to fabricatorolympics.com and get your tickets now because they are extremely limited. The first place winner walks away with a brand new Lincoln 180i and $1,000 cash in their pocket. And for those of you not competing, we have a ton of other games and prizes to give away at the event too. So for more info and to buy tickets, go to fabricatorolympics.com and we'll see you in October.
What's up, Arc Junkies? Today's guest is Mark Wilson from Rockmount. Mark's been on the show a couple times, and it's always a great time chatting with him. Today we discuss the best ways to keep you safe from welding fumes. As more and more welders are starting to understand and prioritize fume mitigation, I wanted to get Mark on the show to discuss using a PAPR system. There's many pros and cons of using a PAPR system, but at the end of the day, they're a great option if you're involved with welding, grinding, and cutting on a daily basis. We'll get right into the show after a quick word from our supporters. Today's episode of the Arc Junkies Podcast is brought to you by Rockmount Research and Alloys. Maintenance welders, check it out. I've told you all about Rockmount's Brutus rods, but did you know that it's also available in a flux core? Well, it is. Flux core has better deposition rates and is more efficient than stick electrodes. So not only can switching to flux core wire save you time while welding, it can also save you money because you're putting more product into the weld joint, thus saving you even more money. Rockmount's Brutus flux core wire boasts 125,000 pounds of tensile strength and 35% elongation. It's ideal for dissimilar metals and has excellent corrosion resistance. Try that with your 7018. It's not going to work. Rockmount rods are specifically designed and formulated for maintenance welding in the field where the work is actually happening. Check out Brutus flux core and Rockmount's entire catalog at rockmountwelding.com. And when you spend $250 or more, you can get a free 1-pound tube of tartan AAA when you use AJP in the discount box at checkout. Get the job done right the first time, every time with Rockmount. We're also brought to you by Outlaw Leather in Pasadena, Texas. Outlaw is American-owned and operated by an awesome group of people who put customers first and prioritize quality and speed on all of your custom orders. Whether you're looking for a custom hood, arm pad, ironworker gear, or any other custom leather piece, Outlaw is the perfect place to make your dream a reality. Just send them an email with the details and description of your work to info@outlawleatherllc.com, and they'll bring your concept to reality. Maybe you're not looking for a custom piece. Well, then check out their full range of in-stock, ready-to-ship, handmade leather goods. They also carry everything else you need as a welder to include PPE, hand tools, layout tools, torches, and everything in between. And they offer fast and easy shipping so you can get what you want when you need it. Just hop on over to outlawleather.com. And as a listener of the Arc Junkies Podcast, you can save 15% off all their in-stock leather goods when you use Arc Junkies in the discount box at checkout. We're also brought to you by Fronius USA. Fronius is thrilled to announce 2 new welding products to unleash your welding potential. First up is the Fronius Dual Wire Feeder, the new WF25i. It gives welders the freedom to have 2 torches ready to go, each with different wire types or sizes, different welding parameters, and easily switchable at the touch of a button. No need to change your wire spools or consumables between applications. Get precision wire feeding and save time without adding complexity to your day. Next is the mobile fume extraction system, Exento. The Exento system comes in both a high-vac and low-vac version to fit your specific welding needs. The low-vac system includes a flexible extraction arm with 360 degrees of rotation and a flow-optimized hood for excellent fume extraction. The high-vac system combines perfectly with the Exento torch kits to remove more than 99.9% of captured fume particles at the arc to provide excellent extraction in a compact unit. Come experience both product lines at FabTech this September in Chicago. While at the booth, be sure to stick around for the daily machine giveaways, guest appearances, welding presentations, and of course the opportunity to weld on-site with a wide range of Fronius products. Alright y'all, FabTech is fast approaching, and if you're planning on attending, there's a couple after-hours events I wanted y'all to know about. Join me and a few of my friends Sunday, September 10th from 7 to 10 p.m. at the Hard Rock Cafe in Chicago. This event will be hosted by some of the biggest names in the welding industry, to include Weld Porn, Blue Demon, Outlaw Leather, O2 Armor, Up and Smoke Welding Apparel, Kalos, Fronius, Flametech Scorpion, Weld Metals Online, Arc Junkies Podcast, Underground Metalworks, and Southern Weld Company. I'll see y'all out there. I'm also going to be at the AWS ArcStars meetup Tuesday, September 12th at 10 p.m. at the AWS booth B27000 with my friends Stephanie Hoffman, Chloe Hudson, Rachel Lee, Dabs Wellington, and Dania Bushcutter. Stop by for a Q&A session and a meet and greet. Later on that evening, you can join Stephanie Hoffman and I at Fatport Tap Works for the American Welding Society's Arcs and Nails networking event. If you've never been to an Arcs and Nails event, you don't know what you're missing, and you're not going to want to miss out, so please stop by. Then on September 30th, you can join me and Dabs Wellington up in Green Bay, Wisconsin for Viper Fest at Viper Headquarters. Viper Fest includes a car show, burnout pit, private car detailing, and welding classes taught by Dabs Wellington and myself, and to wrap things up, a concert featuring Smoke Road and Our Last Night. Sign up for the welding classes and get tickets at viperfest.com or just click the link in the show notes. Alright, y'all know what time it is. Fire up your machine, drop your hood, and turn me up 5.
Thank you for downloading show number 292 of the Arc Junkies Podcast.
You're listening to the Arc Junkies Podcast, helping you make every weld better than your last with each episode. And now your host, Jason Becker.
All right, Mark, how you been, man?
Hey, good, Jason, man. How are you?
I can't complain. Busy as always, but busy's good. Keeps me out of trouble.
Yeah, that's usually the way it works. You know, what do they say? Idle hands are the devil's playground, or something like that. Isn't that the phrase?
That is the thing. I learned that at a very young age.
Yeah,
same thing. I
also learned if it didn't want my backside to be a little sore, that I better stay busy.
Yeah, it was the same thing in the military. It was like the most dangerous weapon in the world is a bored Marine. So you keep them busy, otherwise we start getting in trouble.
Yeah, I've met some Marines. I can verify that. That's a true thing.
I wanted to throw out a compliment to you because we had you guys came out a while back to our AWS meeting and did some demos and everything, and a lot of people really enjoyed that. So I got to get you back on the schedule because our section is expanding. We're having like great turnouts at our different events.
Absolutely, I'd love to do it. That was a lot of fun. That was a really, really great time. Getting to, because one of my favorite things to do is interact with people that are actually out in the industry. And also the benefit of that meeting was I got to interact with people who are just getting into the industry and learning new things about kind of what's out there, the broader welding world. There's so many aspects of the welding world, and it's just such a great trade. I think I read an article just a few weeks ago that on the AWS or something, that there was like a shortage of somewhere around 400,000 welders.
Oh yeah, it's massive.
And it's such a great trade, such a great skill to be able to learn and develop and really grow a lasting career that you can be proud of and say, hey, yeah, I did that. I fixed that. I built that. I got my company up and running on that job. This piece was broken. I was the one who came in and got it fixed. It's a really rewarding career.
Yeah, there's a sense of pride that goes along with it, and I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've enjoyed throughout my career is kind of like leaving that legacy, and now being in education, being able to teach others the skills that they need to go out there and kind of build their legacy. I mean,
For sure, you're
multiplying
yourself.
Yeah,
you're multiplying yourself.
Yeah, and my wife and kids, they're always, like, yeah, we know, Dad. Like, but I always tell them, like, I built that. I got to fix that. Like, there's a sense of pride with it because welders make the world go round. I mean, everything that we touch, interact with on a daily basis, welding is touched in some form or fashion.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. The Lincoln Electric building back in the 40s was the first one that wasn't built with rivet. That was the first building that they used welded joints to make a building, and they ended up being able to do so much more with the design because they could be a lot more creativity. There was a lot more creativity because they didn't have to just build boxes. So you're right. Everything that we see, everything that we interact with on a daily basis has been welded. Anything big has been welded at some point.
Yeah. And that's kind of one of the things that, like, as we go out and try to recruit and bring more people into this trade, breaking down some of the myths and misconceptions about the industry that it's dark, dirty, and dangerous and all that good stuff. I think one of the things, one of the best things we've done for our industry is safety. And a lot of people are like, no, it's cumbersome. I don't want to tie off. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do, like, all these rules and laws and regulations and everything. Those are written in blood. Those are written in, somebody died or got seriously injured, and that's why we have to do it this way now. And some of it's a pain in the butt. Some of it's, kind of cumbersome, some of the safety equipment and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's there to keep you safe. So you go home with all your fingers and toes and appendages, like everything you showed up to the job site with, you should be able to go back home with that and, live comfortably after you get off work.
100%. And that's something. So I've been in the industry for about 20 years, and the safety industry has really kind of evolved in that time, and people are a lot more conscious of, what's going on around them. And thankfully technology has kind of kept up with that to make it to where it's not as cumbersome as it once was. They streamline things, the technology in welding hoods that you have better vision in the light state so that you don't have to lift your hood to grind or something like that. All of those factors make it easier to be safe. And there's always that kind of wild card of, well, the welder, well, I can do it. And he just goes out and does it. There's kind of that old school mentality, I guess, at some level. But at the same time, I prefer to go home and not have my eyes burned or lose a finger or something like that. I'd prefer to be safe. I'd prefer to have the kind of quality of life outside of work that I want rather than, and so it's definitely something that I've seen really take a lot more root in the industry. And for the most part, I think it's super beneficial, for both the welder and for the businesses that employ these kind of safety features.
Oh, for sure. I think one of the main reasons, just speaking from a welding standpoint or a welder standpoint, I think one of the biggest problems with safety is the same problem that we have in inspection. And it's the type of people that you give them that badge to go out there and regulate and everything, and then they just want to go out there and harass people.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a lot of inspectors that go out there and do the same stuff. That's why everybody's got a bad taste in their mouth when it comes, oh, here comes the safety guy, or here comes the inspector.
Right.
It's like, oh, make sure you got all your stuff together. If they came off a better way of doing things, or not like I'm the law, and it's like usually it's the kid that got picked on their entire time through high school, and now they're in a position of authority, and everybody has to pay. So I think that's one of the reasons that safety kind of gets such a bad rap, is because you got people on job sites that are like that. So nobody wants to really comply because, screw the safety guy or screw the inspector. He's a prick.
Right. And there's that tension, not just with safety guys. That's a constant tension. You got in the maintenance industry where I work, there's that constant pull between the operators and the repair guys, the shop guys. There's that constant pull. You have job sites where there's the pull between the lead man and the engineer that get in the fight. And you're right. A lot of it just has to do with guys really choosing to be abrasive, choosing to just be a jerk rather than, come on, we're all in this to get this job done together. Let's all pull together. And yeah, 100%. The teams that I see that are the most effective are the ones that have managed to bridge that gap and keep those kind of, tensions a little more at bay. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be a little bit. You can't help it.
Yeah, I mean it's just a fact of construction and skilled trades in general, blue collar work. There's
right.
a lot of ego involved in that.
There's going to be people who say this should have been done 3 days ago. Why are you still doing it? And then people are going to be like, well, we need to slow down because we got to do this and all that kind of. There's always going to be something. But yeah, I do think with the way that particularly the safety industry has gone. In the technology, it's become not only much more practical, but much better for guys to use this kind of gear and to use it in a way that they're happy to use it. They're not like, oh man, I got to put this thing on. No, they see the benefit of it, and it's easy to get them to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, as soon as you can show somebody the benefit. And, it's not a pain in the butt. It's not cumbersome. Somebody's not riding them to make them do it. I think that's when you start getting the buy-in. You show, and I've always said that with everything in life. Show me the why. Like, if you can show me why, sure. Then, okay, now I can buy in. I got to understand that. Don't just, tell me this is the law or this is the rule or this is the regulation. Like why?
100. Yeah,
I want to understand that. Just give me the reason, then I can get buy-in.
Yeah, 100%. And when we do that, when we see those kind of things, then yeah, it becomes a really easy sale. I've got I've got pictures. We the respiratory systems that we work with at Rockmount. We've got a guy that used one of them for a day. Just took it out on loan for a day, and we have a picture of his of what the filter looked like after just one day in the industry. And he immediately bought it when he looked at it, and I can show you that picture sometime if you want to see it. But just, he's like, man, that's what I was breathing in. And now with this system, I'm not breathing it in. It's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, it wasn't until when I got into education and we started using at the source fume extraction, I didn't realize how much crap was actually in the weld fumes or the grinding dust, all this stuff that's just happens to be in the shop because it's it's a byproduct of the work getting done. But just fume particulate it's actually a solid. When you condense it down, when it goes through the filtration system, it's a solid. That's one of the things I used to have. Actually, I was at the school today. They still have it on the desk. The instructor has it. I've got a glass jar of fume particulate because we had to replace all the filters. And the system that we used was through Lincoln Electric, but it would it kind of purges at the end of the day, so it blows clean air on the filters and it knocks all the sediment off into a sediment collector. Well, once or twice a year, you got to clean out the collector, you got to swap the filters out and stuff like that because filters aren't they're not indefinite.
Right.
So I went to go clean that stuff out and I was like, holy crap, it's heavy too. 6 months of welding, day shift, night shift. We're pulling out a couple of, I think they're 15, 20 pound or 15 to 20 gallon tanks where all this particulate would settle. And we'd have to put them in special bags and all that stuff, tie them off, mark them as hazmat. We'd wear the bunny suit, the respirators. But I saved a jar of that dust just to show everybody, to pass it around the class and say, this is the stuff that you're breathing in on a daily basis if you're not using some sort of at the source fume extraction, or you've got a decent fan set up in your booth, or, you're not putting your head in the fume plume. This is the stuff that's, getting into you.
Yeah. And it's true. The things that they actually have a name for the stuff that comes off a grinding stone. They call it swarf.
Swarf?
Swarf. It's the particles that are produced when you grind. And that, I've talked to guys, over the years that they talk about how, man, I do a lot of grinding, and everything I grind, everything I do after that tastes like grinding stone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not because you were licking the grinding stone, it's because you're breathing it in.
Right.
And it's very definitely something that, even if it's something that's maybe, not super hazardous, like a carcinogenic or something like that, just the way that it can just ruin your, how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big deal to be able to protect from that.
Oh yeah, and like you said, you could taste it. So I used to. We did a lot of work when I was doing iron work with galvanized material, and I could always tell when I was, done working with galvanized. Because I dipped Copenhagen at the time, and I'd put like a dip in, and I'm like, man, this got a completely different taste. It's got like a sweeter taste. It was almost better, but I know that galvanized is not good for you to breathe in because you can get metal fume fever, or what do they call it? Heavy metal poisoning. It's like zinc. Zinc is nasty stuff. It's a good vitamin for you to take, especially for males.
Right.
But it's not a good product to be breathing in.
Yeah. Having the mineral zinc in your body is a good thing, but having it come through your lungs is not a good thing. Zinc is present in galvanized. Galvanized is a big has a lot of zinc in it. The material that they use for galvanizing. But zinc is also present in a lot of brazing alloys. A lot of solders have an amount of zinc in them as well. And so when you consider you're working with something that's got something that can make you sick, and then you've got an enclosed area. Say you're in a tight spot, or you're out in the field. Even out in the field, if you're down in a hole and you're welding on you've got this stand, you're doing road work and you're putting up a stand, and it's galvanized pipe, and you're welding in place, but you're down in the hole where there's not a lot of movement. You can really get exposed to some stuff that you don't want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had two buddies. They had to do work inside of a prison, and they were like kind of new to the welding industry, but they had to, I guess it was in a like a stairwell area. So because it's in a prison system, they had to be locked inside that unit to be able to perform the work and everything.
Sure.
So the inmates couldn't get access to them. They couldn't get out and walk around the prison unattended. So they got locked in this room. But they were in there putting up handrail, and it was all galvanized handrail. And there's no ventilation in this room. So both of them got really sick. The one guy called up, I remember, so it was like Fred and Sam. So Sam calls up Fred later on that night, and he's like, dude, are you feeling okay? And Fred's like, no, man, I'm sick. Like I'm laying here, that the house is like 74 degrees, and like I am freezing, laying under a ton of blankets, just sweating. Well, both of them got, heavy metal poisoning or, metal fume fever. And it was because they were locked in a room all day, grinding and welding on galvanized with no ventilation in there.
Right. And it's the particles from the grinding, and it's the particles from the welding as well. They're both present in those environments. I have that picture. I'll hold it up to my camera. Can you see? Never mind. I don't think you can see it really.
No. Yeah, you might have to send that over.
I'll send it to you. It's on our Instagram as well. But it was just one day working with this unit, and it's just the top one is the used one, the bottom one is the brand new one, and it's amazing how much is around you that can be filtered out with just a little bit of protection.
Yeah, and you don't even realize it, because I use those O2 armors all the time, because I do a lot of on-site inspections for different companies, or I'm administering weld tests, or whatever, just being in different shops all the time, and not everybody's got the best air quality. I'll just put it that way, depending on the shop that you're in. So a lot of times, like I carry in my inspection kit, I carry the little O2 armors. I pop those in. At the end of the day, I pop them back out, and you can physically see everything that those things have blocked.
Yep. And a lot of that has, OSHA regulates that based on the amount of air that's moving within the shop. So there's what's the total environment, and they kind of regulate that based on the total environment, but the small, I'm here and I'm welding on this particular piece of equipment, and I'm kind of shielded from anything, so there's not a whole lot of air movement in that tight spot. That makes a difference, even if your shop is compliant, because the amount of air and they've got fans running and all that stuff. There's still some stuff that, particularly when you're welding on stuff that like galvanized or like stainless steel with hexavalent chromium or something like that would be good to protect yourself.
Yeah, same thing with aluminum. Aluminum's pretty bad. I can always tell, like, at the end of the day, like, I used to do a lot of gates and ornamental handrails and stuff like that, so it was all, like, spool gun MIG. And at the end of the day, like, your chest just felt heavier. You could physically feel that. Yeah,
for sure. And aluminum, it's not just that with aluminum. Aluminum is such a porous metal. It soaks up. So unless it's brand new aluminum, that aluminum is going to have something that was in the aluminum that boils out when you weld it.
Mm-hmm.
Aluminum's got such a low melting temperature, it'll cause any of those organics or fumes or anything like that. That'll cause that to come right out.
Yeah, and a lot of times welding with those different processes, especially if it's gas shielded, whether it's your MIG welding or TIG welding or flux core gas shielded, a lot of times you got to turn off your fan. Like, you got the fan pointed on you to blow away the fumes, but you've got to turn that fan off while you're welding because it's going to blow away your shielding gas. So it's a catch-22. Yeah. You got mechanical ventilation set up because you're trying to be compliant, but now it's preventing you from doing your work, so you shut off your safety factor so you can get the work done.
That's right. Yeah, and I see it all the time. I see it all the time with guys that are, another thing that has some potentially hazardous particles is like a hard facing will have some higher alloy content, and the chromium carbides, a lot of those kind of things, they'll put them on with a MIG or a flux core or something like that, and they'll turn off their ventilation because they don't want to blow away their shield. You're exactly right. It's a big factor.
Yeah, it's a pain in the butt too. Because you got all this stuff set up, especially down here in Florida. Like, I don't know about where you're at, but it was like 102 degrees today. I know my buddy Matt posted a video on Instagram the other day of Texas, and like, people's tires are sticking to the asphalt as they're like in traffic. It's just peeling off. But yeah, I mean, you set up that fan, but you got to shut it off when it's time to actually do the work. And it's just you're bringing all that stuff in. Yeah, the hottest part of the job, you got to shut down your fan.
Yeah, you got to turn off the thing that's keeping you cool for the hottest part of the job. Yeah. I'm in Oklahoma. It was 105 today.
Okay, here, so it's a scorcher out there. It's hot everywhere right now.
Not quite as humid as you are, but it's up there. It's been kind of crazy these last couple of weeks.
Yeah. So I know some of the things that we could use to protect ourselves. I mean, everybody's familiar with like a respirator or at the source fume extraction, but in addition to that, PAPR systems are a great alternative. I know of one company, I went to the Weld Summit last year, and one of the reps from that company came out and kind of explained, what they do in that facility. They make heavy equipment. It's up north. I'm not going to name drop the company. I don't know if they want their name out there, but what they do is they have at the source fume extraction in addition to PAPRs for all of their welders. And this is like a massive facility. So, I mean, you've got air moving all through this. But, I mean, they take redundant measures to keep their employees safe, because if your employees are safe, they go home, they feel great, they're going to come. Chances are they're going to come back to work the next day. But if they're getting sick on the job due to galvanized poisoning or, welding and grinding on aluminum or cadmium or any of the stuff that, we were talking about, they might not come in the next day. So it's kind of a, like, you got to take care of your employees. You don't want them getting sick from the work.
Yeah. Well, and that's another, that's another big perspective in this, because there's always resistance when you're talking about a PAPR system. The PAPR systems that we work with are, range in the neighborhood of about 1,150 to north of $2,000. That's for the self-contained, the personal unit that you would wear. And it's sometimes hard for an employer to say, man, I'm not going to invest that on every one of my employees because that's a big chunk of change.
Mhm.
But the reality is just what you're saying. This big company has redundant systems because they want their employees to like working there. They want their guys to say, you know what, I'm taken care of, and when I leave work, I feel good. And the reality is that investment of whatever it is an investment in keeping that employee rather than having that employee call out and have to be replaced, or having that employee quit and then you have to find a new one. When we just talked about earlier, there's a shortage of guys who in the trades.
Mhm.
You know, you got to find a guy, you got to onboard him, and you got to train him, and you got to get him up to speed. All of those kind of things that cost way more than, $2,000.
Oh yeah.
So the reality of for a business owner or a company making an investment in something like PAPR for their workers, for their workforce, it really makes a lot of sense because it just adds longevity and it adds quality to your workforce, and it also makes them a lot more effective.
Yeah.
When you're breathing clean air rather than air full of stuff that could make you feel bad, well, that means you're going to work harder. That means you're going to be able to be more productive. That means you're going to be able to be more effective. One of the big things with PAPR that we talk about with our customers a lot is the on arc time. The fact that you're not having to take as many breaks and go outside and get some fresh air. No, you can stay on arc and you can power through a lot more stuff. That makes you more effective. Efficiency is just as important as, watching the bottom line.
Mhm. Well, I mean, also,
It's a big part of the bottom line.
Yeah, I've seen welders, like good welders, leave specific industries and get into something completely different. Whether it was, working in a shipyard for repair or new construction, same thing. I mean, they're in these isolated little areas where, they're having to deal with all these different fumes and, sparks and grinding dust and all that stuff. But I mean, rail car industry, same thing. Like I know people that have worked in these industries and they left because they're like, I'm tired of being in a confined space that's just full of welding fumes.
Right. I'm tired of still smelling it when I get home.
Yeah. Well, I've done that 100 times. Like I'll come home, give my wife a kiss. She's like, you smell like metal. Well, yeah, that's what I do. I work with metals. And then you get in the shower and, you take a shower or whatever. And the first thing you smell, as soon as the water starts hitting your body, it smells like rust. Or you get in the truck at the end of the day, you go to blow your nose and you got black boogers hanging out in your handkerchief. I mean, that's a good indication right there that you're breathing in stuff that you shouldn't be breathing in.
Yeah. There's lots of that goes around. Yeah. You don't, so and that's one of the good things that's kind of come with kind of this evolution of safety. You're right in that there are oftentimes are things that feel cumbersome with regard to trying to stay compliant with safety officers and stuff like that. But the real benefit is longevity and career longevity, longevity in the day itself, and longevity in keeping employees. I mean, you've run crews before. You've had guys that you're like, man, they came, they gave their notice, and you said, well, what if I bumped you this much to match whatever that other guy is going to give you? Would you stay? Because you don't want to have to retrain them. So giving them something that gives them better quality of life just really is. It's really a great thing.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about it on one of the previous episodes. The average onboarding cost for like the probationary period for an employee is about $10,000.
Oh yeah, easily.
So if you bring somebody on, you onboard them, you get them through the process, they're halfway through the deal. You're $5,000 into training this individual, and then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I'm out of here. I can't take it.
Nope. Yeah. It's a huge cost. But what hurts the most is they get through the onboarding process and they work for you for 6 months, and then they say, "Man, I'm telling you, I'm going home and I'm not feeling good because I'm breathing all of this stuff." Where $1,000 investment in a PAPR system for that guy, he wouldn't have come back in after 6 months of doing a good job for you and said, I'm out of here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I finally broke down and picked one up because I do a lot of certification testing. And part of certification testing is cutting and destroying the plate samples that they give you or the pipe samples and cutting everything up. Then you got to grind down the face. You got to grind down so there's a lot of grinding that's involved. That's the part that sucks. Yeah. I go through a lot of grinding wheels. But the other day I was cutting up some, what was it? A 4-inch Schedule 10 piece of pipe. And so this is a part that I could not get configured in my saw correctly because I don't have a $20,000 Marvel saw. So I was like, okay, I tried it and I was able to make one cut and I was like, this isn't getting as accurate as I need it to be. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to have to rip it all apart with a cutoff wheel. So I had to cut out 4 specimens. So 8 cuts or, 8 full cuts and probably about 5 grinding or cutoff wheels just because it's stainless. And the amount of dust that was generated, and anytime you cut into stainless, you're releasing hexavalent chromium. Like I had to suit up and cut it all out. But I mean, that's why I recently invested in a PAPR system just to mitigate a lot of that stuff.
For sure. Yeah. And hexavalent chromium is probably the most, it's the one that people know the most about because it's the one that's kind of been out front and it's because it's in so many different things. I had a customer once that this was when hexavalent chromium first kind of came to the forefront, and they were like, "Man, we're not doing any more stick welding with stainless steel because of hexavalent chromium. We're going to only wire weld it." and I looked at him and I said, "You do realize that it's the filler rod, it's not the flux that has the chromium in it, right? So really what you're doing, stick rod goes on at an average of about 5 pounds an hour, whereas MIG wire will go down at an average of about 12 pounds an hour. You're actually doubling your exposure by going with wire rather than with stick rod. And it's a lot more impractical in some of the situations this particular company was in. But it was just what they did. And it's part of it is education, part of it is knee-jerk reactions by people who are just trying to, put a Band-Aid on something real quick. But understanding where the thing that you need to protect from comes from is important.
Yeah, and that's why I had no idea. So like when I got into doing a lot of ornamental work, which was all stainless, the company I was with, they said from now on, anytime we work with stainless, if we're cutting, grinding, welding, running a plasma cutter on it, you're going to have to wear a respirator. Well, why? Well, because that's just the way it is. That's the email I got, so that's what you're going to have to do. It wasn't until I got into teaching welding and started doing some research on my own that I realized stainless steel contains hexavalent chromium, which is known to cause cancer in all of your major organs, from lung cancer, brain cancer, pancreatic cancer, like all the places you don't want cancer. Not that you want cancer anywhere, but I mean, it's like these are some of the hot spots you definitely don't want cancer. And so I was like, okay, now I understand the why. I'll buy in and I'll wear this stuff. So anytime I deal with stainless steel, I'm wearing a respirator, or a PAPR system.
Yeah. That was a big thing when those regs first came on, were these just little under the mask or under the hood paper respirators that were, they were hot, and you really had to really breathe in to feel like you're getting enough airflow because it's filtering your air, which is good. It was doing its job, but it was uncomfortable. It felt a lot hotter, and it was you had to be clean shaven. You couldn't have facial hair. Had another customer once that had a job on a refinery site, and their truck drivers that were delivering the crane out there at the security gate, these guys had to dry shave in their truck so that they could put on a respirator to get on the premises. That's how strict some of these regulations have gotten in some places. And that's one of the benefits of PAPR, of PAPR systems, is that they work with guys who have facial hair because of the positive air pressure inside the mask. It filters the air, and because the air pressure inside the mask is higher than outside, none of the stuff gets back into the mask, even though the seal is not perfect because of facial hair or something like that. It's a big benefit to a powered air system. Not only that, it's a lot easier to wear in a way that it'll actually work. Another problem with the regular respirators is they're really easy to wear wrong, to have gaps in them, or because they're uncomfortable, you pull them down. I mean, well, we just went through COVID, and who didn't pull their mask down under their nose?
Oh, there's still people driving in the fast lane with the freaking mask on their faces underneath their nose, and it's like, okay, either wear it or don't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there just not wearing it correctly because it's uncomfortable. It's a pain in the ass, and not only that, I worked with a guy that so in order to wear a respirator at the facility that I was at, we had to do a PFT, pulmonary function test, in addition to the fit test. So you go one place, you get your fit test done. You got to be clean shaven. You get fit up and everything. They put a bag over your head and they squirt this saccharin product or whatever in there, to tell you if you got a proper seal or not. So you have the correct size mask, whether it's small, medium, large, extra large. And then I think every 10 pounds that you lose, you have to get refit. But you also have to get refit on an annual basis. But we also had to take a pulmonary function test. So you'd go down to like a LabCorp or Quest Diagnostics or whatever, and they'd administer this test where you essentially blow through like a 1 1/4 inch diameter tube, completely unrestricted. You just blow through this as hard as you can, and they measure your spirometry or whatever. And there were guys, because they'd smoked or they'd been welding for so long without proper protection that they could not pass that test. Because when you put a respirator on, what a lot of people don't realize, and there's so many people just go buy a respirator, they put it on, they're like, okay, cool, I'm safe now. No, your body might not be able to handle that because it's physically taxing on your respiratory system, because it takes more effort to inhale and exhale. So if your heart's not up to that challenge, like if you got COPD or underlying issues or anything like that, you're not going to be able to wear a respirator. So there were certain people on the crew that could not weld or work with stainless because they couldn't wear a respirator.
Right. And it's because a respirator, it does restrict the amount of air that you can take in because it's filtering it. Air goes through it, but it doesn't go through as easy if you're just in open air. Mm-hmm. So it does affect that. And that's one of the things that PAPR systems really do help with. You don't have to take a pulmonary test with a PAPR system because it's blowing air in there at a rate of, it depends on what system and what speed, but at a rate of either 100 liters up to 240 liters per hour or per minute. I'd have to look at the chart. I don't have that right offhand, but it's blowing that air in there. So it makes it easier to breathe rather than having to work harder to breathe in an already confined situation.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. This segment of the Arc Junkies podcast is brought to you by Everlast Welders. Everlast has an awesome promo going on with the new Typhoon 300. Right now, you can get a free water cooler or a free wireless foot pedal when you order the new Typhoon 300. There's no promo codes, there's no rebates, there's no other hoops to jump through. Just place an order for the new Typhoon 300 and let them know which free item you want. It's that easy. And as always, be sure to use Arc Junkies in the comment section at checkout to get that free Nova foot pedal and TIG torch when you buy any machine that comes with a stock foot pedal. Everlast Welders. Weld mean, weld green. We're also brought to you by Workbench Pros. Are you looking to upgrade your current fabrication setup? Then look no further than Workbench Pros. You can now buy all of your Build Pro tools and tables right through workbenchpros.com. They have everything you need to help increase your accuracy and decrease your time on build. If you've never used a fab table, you don't know what you're missing. And once you do, you're never going to go back to a makeshift welding table again. Right now, Workbench Pros is having a massive summer sale special on Build Pro tables and fixturing tools. Check them out today at workbenchpros.com and stop fighting your work and start dominating it. All right, now let's get back into the show. Yeah, that's what I noticed with the Swiss Air system that I bought. Is like you turn it on and it's like it's got a VFD on it, so it's variable speed. So you can kind of turn it up, turn it down to exactly where you want it. But I noticed I couldn't smell, as I'm grinding and cutting, I couldn't smell any of the material that I was working with. I couldn't taste any of the material that I was working with. And I was able to do that because, like, as most people know, I have a rather large beard. So I always avoided a lot of work that I was like, yeah, no, I got to put a respirator on. No, I'm not going to screw with that. Or I would use at the source fume extraction if I had the advantage of doing that. But yeah, with the Swiss Air system, I can kind of twist my beard up and put it in that little pocket, and then everything's nice, comfortable. I don't smell anything, don't taste anything, and it's got that positive air pressure. So like you said, nothing's getting inside of that mask because it's got a greater force coming out than anything would coming in.
Right. And the filter in that, it filters out 99.8% of particulates. That's the HEPA filter that's in that system. So it provides you first rate protection from the things that, like we talked about hexavalent chromium, which is a big part of stainless steel welding. Doesn't matter if it's 308, 316, 304, whatever kind of stainless it in, there's chromium in it. But another place that there's some chromium that people don't always think about is in hard facing. Hard facing a lot of times will contain a higher alloy content, and one of the things that makes hard face hard often is chromium carbide. That's got the hexavalent chromium particles as well. So even if you're doing your hard facing outside, if you're hard facing the inside of a bucket, your head's in there with it. You're going to be in direct contact with that. And that could be, like that's like at a construction company. But what if you're like at an aggregate pit or a mine or something like that? You're hard facing. You should have some sort of protection in those situations. Another big thing is manganese. Manganese is present in almost every steel as kind of a deoxidizing alloy, but it's particularly in like railroad steel. There's Hatfield manganese steel that's used a lot in railroads. A lot of hardened stuff has got a high manganese content. Manganese also has been connected with some bad stuff that could happen to somebody. There's this new thing, and it's all kind of anecdotal, so I don't talk about it too much, but they're talking about something called welders anthrax with regard to exposure to manganese. And what it is it's something it like, and like I said, it's mostly anecdotal. There's not really been a whole lot of studies on it. It's still relatively new, but a overexposure to manganese suppresses the immune system, making you more apt to get sick. And they're kind of calling that like a welder's anthrax kind of a thing.
Huh.
The United States is always kind of a little bit behind the curve on some of these things.
Yeah.
In Europe now, if you're welding for more than 4 hours, you're wearing a PAPR system.
Really?
In England, there are some provinces in Canada, Manitoba particularly, if you're welding on manganese, you're required to have, fume extraction, which there's some really cool stuff happening particularly with wire systems. Fronius has got one that I heard you talk about in one of your talks that does, at the point of the arc fume extraction.
Yeah,
those are really cool things
system.
too. Yeah, those are really cool as well. But I would think that you would want that added protection. But like I said, in the province of Manitoba, you can't weld manganese without wearing PAPR.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of the
system.
Canadians that I know, they actually wear a lot of PAPR systems.
Yeah,
so that makes sense. Yeah, but I mean, the cool thing is, like I said, with that, I picked that Swiss Air just because I'm not always welding. So yeah, it's great for when I have to weld, but I'm not always welding. I do a lot more grinding than I do welding, not because I'm a crappy welder, but because I do a lot of test plates. So, I don't want to, because I have a full, power or a PAPR system for welding. So if I know that I'm going to be welding all day, I can throw that on. But if I want to go from, if I'm fabricating, if I want to go from cutting to grinding to polishing to blending to all those different things, I don't want to have to put a full PAPR system on and just raise the top part of my welding hood to be able to do that. It's kind of cumbersome. It's a pain in the butt. If I can just get along with, a set of earplugs and some safety glasses, I'd rather do that and still be protected from the particulate. If I'm getting in there doing detailed work, even running like a deburring bit, anything like that,
sure,
it's going to block all that crap out, and I don't have to wear the entire welding hood. But if I have to switch over and go back to welding with that Swissair, I can just throw my hood back on.
No.
Everything fits up underneath it. And the problem with a lot of respirators is they're big and bulky. So I've got one of the 3M half face filters with the P100 filters.
Yeah, the big bubbles on the side of it.
Well, it's like more like a flat pancake. They're like little pink ones.
Right.
So they're still considered low profile, but it's still like, I mean, it clears the hood for the most part, but a lot of times it can get in the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one of the great things about the Swissair system. You know, one of the things that my customers love about the Swissair system is that if they can use it when they're welding, they can use it when they're grinding, they can use it when they're doing like clean out. A lot of, you know, we do so much in the maintenance industry. There are guys in fertilizer operations or mining operations that they have to clean out trailers. You know, they've got to go into the wash bay. Well, just because you're washing it doesn't mean there's not a lot of stuff floating around. You know, so there's a lot of chemical, a lot of, you know, a lot of corrosives, a lot of caustic things that can happen. And matter of fact, there's some things that if you add water to them, it can make it even more dangerous. So having that kind of protection that's available as just a standalone respiratory protection when you don't need the hood is really, really handy. The half mask of that Swissair system and where it sits on you, because it kind of sits in the middle of your back and the controls right there on your chest. It's easy to use. It's comfortable. You know, I mean, you obviously notice that you're wearing it, but it's not cumbersome. It's a really, really smooth and slick system that's very, very versatile. And you're able to use it, like you said, not just for welding, but for grinding and for all these other situations that you could use some protection in.
Yeah, it's like my regular Papper system. It's got I mean, you got to put a belt on because it's a pretty robust pack. And then you got like a 4-point harness that you have to put on in addition. And then you put the hood on, and then you got this big hose flopping around in the back. So, I mean, especially like if you're trying to get into tight spaces, like you're pulling all this crap with you, and it does have some weight. And it also, because it blows across your face, I noticed that like your eyes dry out and your lips dry up. So, like before you get suited up, you know, put some chapstick on. I do like the fact that I really don't have to wear safety glasses while I've got a full-fledged Papper system on. But with the other option, the Swissair, like I can put on safety glasses, but it's really low profile. It's lightweight. The filtration system's a lot smaller. You barely know that it's there. It's like kind of like wearing like a small backpack, like a very, very lightweight backpack.
Yeah. And that's one of the benefits of the Swissair is that it is, you know, Uptrail really worked hard to make it very, very user friendly and to make it something that was really, really practical. And they wanted to innovate and kind of reimagine it so that it would work really well in industrial environments. The Papper systems also, you know, they're the integrated systems like the one you're talking about with the hose and the belt mount, the blower systems, those are generally more robust. They have a little bit more power. They usually have, you know, the HEPA filters are pretty even, but they also sometimes will have a vapor filter available in those kind of systems as well. But one of the things that I really like about the systems that I use is that they have ductwork within the mask itself to keep it from blowing on your eyes and drying out your contacts and all of those things, because that's a big deal. You know, you got air blowing at you, you know, all the time. Well, it's going to dry some stuff out. So where the air is aimed, and it actually has kind of a cooling effect. Yeah, you're pulling the same Florida air that you'd be breathing, but because it's blowing right on your cheeks rather than up in your eyes, it gives you kind of a cooling effect in that integrated system. It's really, really handy. And once again, it's a system that you can use with facial hair. You know, you can just, you know, you tuck the mask under your chin. You don't have to have the tight seal. That's a big deal. You know, there's a lot of welders out there like you, Jason, that have the glorious beard, and they don't want to get rid of
welding
it.
than get rid of my beard. But that was the thing that prompted me to buy it. I seen you guys had put out a video, and it came across my feed, and it was like, you know, now you can wear this with a beard. And I was like, that's what caught my attention, because like I said, I still have, you know, pretty large beard. And I was I was like, would it work with a beard of my size? And they said, yeah. I was like, okay, this is a long shot, but I'm gonna try it just because the amount of cutting and grinding and all that stuff that I'm doing now. I was like, I might as well, because like hell, just the other day, well, actually last night, I tested 31 test plates. I had 10 welders go through 31 test plates in the course of 7.5 hours. I've never seen anything like it. So I've got 31 test plates that I'm in the process right now of cutting apart. But then once I get them all cut apart, then I've got to go through and grind everything and then bend them. So 31, I've get 2 samples out of each one. Actually, 25 of them pass visual. So I've got 50 sets of coupons that I have to grind all the corners off, radius them, take the face off, take the backing strip off, all that stuff. That's a lot of grinding. And for the grinding, I don't have at the source fume extraction because those are like in the booths, and they're not really meant for grinding. I mean, typically you would use a downdraft table, but the problem with a downdraft table is there's no surface area to clamp to, which sucks. And I'm not going to hold these parts in my hand and run a grinder at 96,000 RPMs or 30,000 RPMs across. I'm not doing that. So having a papper system, I can kind of tuck myself off in a corner, grab a vise, grab a grinder, put the Swiss system on, and start doing all my grinding.
Right, and it's not just like we talked about earlier. It's not just the metal particles that can get in your nose and in your mouth. It's the swarf from the grinding stones. It's all of that other stuff. It's any kind of rust or mill scale or something that was on that steel that gets up in the air and yeah, while it might not be as dangerous as something like a manganese or a hexavalent chromium or a cadmium or zinc, all the other stuff like that, it still sucks.
It's still not pleasant.
It's still not something that nobody wants the brown booger blow. Nobody wants that. And so being able to protect that so that when you're done with your day, you can be done with your day and not have to fight with consequences of your day. That's a big deal.
I've already have sinus issues. Like I got an appointment 2 weeks from now to go see an ear, nose, and throat specialist. Just because I've got sinus issues, I get 3 to 4 ear infections throughout the year. Like hell, when I was at FabTech Atlanta last year, I was like, man, I am just not feeling good. Turns out it was a massive ear infection. Same thing. I just went up so that was November last year. July, I went up to go see Stephanie Hoffman and pack up all her stuff to bring the school down to Orlando. And I had probably the worst ear infection I've ever had in my entire life.
Oh man!
And it was bad. Like I had blood in my ears. It was nasty. I don't want to get into all the details, but I was like, okay, I've got to change something. I got to do something different. And I don't think my sinus issues aren't associated with welding, but I don't think the welding and grinding is making it any better.
Well, right, so yeah. So if you've already got something, like say you've got severe allergies.
Yep.
So your sinuses are going to be inflamed just because of that. Well, you don't want to add to that.
Yeah, I don't want to irritate it with cadmium and
my son, he's allergic to cats. But he loves cats. So he got a cat. And then all of a sudden he was allergic to absolutely everything. All of his allergies went from tolerable to extreme because he lived with this cat and he was living in a constant state of just, enraged, allergies. And then he got rid of the cat and all of a sudden his allergies aren't that bad anymore.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. It was one of those things that was a fun dad conversation to have with them over way too long of time, but that's okay. But the issue is when you've already got something that can easily go sideways, why add more to it? Why not protect yourself and just keep it from that opportunity of something going sideways?
Yeah. And I like the fact that they use HEPA filters and all those because what a lot of people don't realize, if you, even with like at the source fume extraction, if you don't have a MERV 16 filter or a HEPA grade filter,
right,
you're not filtering out the bad stuff that you think you're filtering out. You're getting like the bulk of it, but you're still hexavalent chromium. You got to have a MERV 16 filter to be able to remove all that. That's why when I was teaching at the school, I was like, we're not teaching, because I think they had like MERV 14 filters, that's what it came stock with. And so I told my rep, I was like, I need MERV 16s. And they're like, well, that's going to be a little bit more expensive. And I was like, well, we're planning on teaching stainless steel here within like the next 10 weeks. So if we don't have those filters in here, I am not teaching that segment of the class.
Right.
So that's what we got hooked up with those systems, because it's the system pulls all of the fume from every single booth, filters it,
right.
blows it right back in the classroom, because the unit itself isn't outside.
Mm-hmm.
So it stays inside the building. So if it's sucking up, all the welding fumes and grinding dust and everything like that going through the filter, and all the hexavalent chromium is just going right through the filter, it's coming right back into the air that everybody else is breathing.
Right. So not just the person who was welding is exposed, the entire room is exposed.
Exactly. But on a PAPR system, they use a HEPA filter, which is a higher grade than the MERV 16. It's like the next step up. It's like the platinum choice for filter or filtration.
Yeah, it's a TH3. It's a TH3 filter, and it's a 99.8% efficiency with regard to particles.
Yeah, that's one that all the Dyson, everything that Dyson makes, they use a HEPA filter and all that.
Sure, for sure. Yeah, it's a huge benefit to that. The other thing that sometimes you do have to filter for is vapors and gases. Now, a regular particulate filter won't do that. So you need a more robust system, a more robust filter. Most welders, the particulate filter is going to cover 99% of your applications, because you're really dealing with metal dusts and the stuff that that comes off it from being put in the air through grinding and stuff like that. But like if you're in a situation where you're dealing with organics, with vapors, with formaldehyde or ammonia or something like that, you need a gas filtration for that kind of thing. So you want to be aware of what you're working in.
So that's in addition to like the HEPA filters?
Yeah. So the way that the gas filter in our systems work it's called an E3000, the Optrel E3000 system, is it's got the HEPA filter in the unit. So the HEPA filter is right here, and then you pop the gas filter over the top of that.
Oh, okay.
So you have it's a double filter.
Oh,
the
gotcha.
gas filter fits right on top of the HEPA filter.
Oh, okay. So is that the same thing in the Swiss Air? Because I noticed it came with like an additional filter that went over top of the HEPA, and then it had a spark arrestor film that went over top of that.
Yeah, that's what they call that's just a pre-filter.
Okay.
That makes your filter last longer.
Gotcha.
So you change out that pre-filter more frequently than you change out the actual filter. And then there's an indicator on the dial that tells you where your filter life is. So you can know, hey, listen, this is not. But if you change your pre-filter on a regular basis, it'll extend the life of the filter. And the pre-filters are really cheap.
So is that like why it's got a green indicator light on it now? Will it go to like yellow and red, or just like green to red?
I think it goes to yellow and then to red. I'd have to look at it, but it gives you an indication of your filter life.
Okay.
On it.
Yeah, because I haven't had a chance. I've probably ran it 3-4 times now. Just going through cleaning up coupons and stuff like that.
Right.
So I was okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and the battery life on it is really outstanding too. It's best in the industry. Up to 14 hours of battery life on it. And they even estimated, even if you just go full bore, it's a 10-hour battery life if you're running it at 100%.
Oh, that's plenty.
But well, did you even run it at full when you were running it?
Oh yeah, I went full all the way.
I cranked all the way up.
Yeah.
There you go. You wanted some air, man. All right. Well, that's cool. But yeah, for the most part, and I've seen other systems where, the battery life isn't as good, and some systems you buy them, they come with multiple systems.
That's my PAPR. I've got my full-fledged, gear with the hood and all that stuff. That's what I've got on that one. I keep a spare battery on charge just in, as I'm welding. I mean, you got to keep. It's kind of like running any other cordless tool. You keep one on charge and then you use the other one, or you keep two on, on standby.
Yeah.
It eats up the batteries quite a bit.
Yeah. So that system, the Optrel system that is like that, actually has an 18-hour battery life. This is the belt system. that connects with the hood, that
Mhm.
integrated system, like the system that you were talking about. And it's also one of the really great things that I like about these welding hoods is Optrail really has been kind of at the forefront of the light state being super light and having really good visuals. So that's a big problem with Papper systems, is that guys will be welding with them and then they'll lift their hood because they want to see what they're doing.
Mhm.
They want to check their work or something like that. But the light state on these hoods is a 2.0. It's like you're wearing sunglasses, and they have really good color differentiation so you can see what you're doing hood down, so you stay protected. Once again, it adds to that on arc time, being able to see what you're doing, keep your hood down, keep yourself protected, and be able to stay on arc is really a big addition. It's really a cool feature.
I've noticed that with a lot of auto darks. Are you guys going to be at FabTech, or I would imagine Optrail's going to be there?
Yeah, Optrail will be there, and I'll pass some information along. You can visit with their guys. I've got some guys that you can visit with. But yeah, the idea of making a welder more comfortable when they're welding, and giving them protection so that they don't have to go up and down, up and down. I mean, you especially in teaching, I'm sure you've seen guys weld and lift their hood and then
Oh, I still
get
do
right
it.
on top of it. Well, yeah, I mean, but it's just constant up
Mhm.
and down, up and down. Well, that's not practical when you're talking about a PAPR system, because once you lift that up, you might as well not have been wearing it.
Yeah.
I mean, so when you've got this, and the hoods are actually designed to sit a little bit closer to your face, so they're not as front heavy. So you don't lean over. The average welder leans over at about a 31-degree angle, which causes neck strain, which causes lower back strain. And if you've got a front heavy hood with a lot of extra stuff up here, this sits closer to your face to negate some of that. They're lighter weight, so it keeps the welder safer. It creates less eye strain because the visual field, it creates less neck strain. All of those things are really, I mean, it's really why we partnered with them. Rock Mountain has for 50 years been about making welders' lives easier.
Mhm.
You know, that's our mission. Is we want you to be able to do the most difficult jobs using the best material, so you can get it done in a quick and easy way, so that you can get on to the next job. So it was really kind of a hand in glove thing when we saw this technology to partner with Optrail, because they're about making sure the welder is not just safe, but also can be more effective. It's more comfortable to use the welding hood and the PAPR systems. You can see better. You can see better when the hood is down, even when the arc is not on. They have the grind mode. That you click the button on the side of the hood, it shuts off the auto dark, so it can just be a grinding shield rather than a welding hood that flickers while you're grinding.
Yeah.
All of those kind of things, just to make you more effective and more efficient. And that's really, I mean, well, I listed, just thinking about last week, you guys talked a lot about work ethic and getting folks. It's hard to get guys with that kind of work ethic.
Mhm.
Well, I think one of the ways that we can really help guys to get that work ethic kind of engaged is with stuff like this. Hey, listen, you can keep that hood down, you can keep going, and just give them these kind of tools, and that might kind of instill it. Now, some of that is just innate. You guys talked about you want to hire guys that worked on their dad's farm and stuff like that. I do too. Send them my way. um but that's a part of it. Making an investment in your team and showing them that you want to keep them safe, and giving them technology that they don't have to change the battery after an hour's work, because they don't just change the battery. They go get a Coke and they go flirt with the secretary, and
Yep.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
So.
No, and what you mentioned was true. Like just the weight of the hood itself, like the full blown Papper welding system that I have. I mean, it's great. Don't get me wrong. I love it, but it
Yeah.
is heavy. You know, and then it does have like you have the ability to lift like the welding side up and still have it like a clear, so you're still protected underneath because you can lift it up and
okay,
you
so
can go to grind mode.
So you've got a,
it's got a clear face shield, but it's pretty damn cumbersome. I mean, there's a lot of weight up there, and I mean, if you're wearing that thing, luckily I don't have to, but if you're wearing that 8, 10, 12 hours a day, it's pretty damn, and it's going to put a lot of neck strain on you.
Yeah, that's the big thing that you know, there we had a rep that was worked with Wilson Trailers a number of years ago in their fabrication side, and they went through, and this was back in the day when auto dark hoods were relatively new. Rock Mount's been around a long time, but they went through and invested in and bought their entire welding crew auto dark hoods because so many welders had neck problems from doing this 100 times a day, you know, doing the nod. You know, and I mean, I'm sure that's how you learned to weld. That's how I learned to weld with the nod, you know, and it's a, you know, that's, you know, kind of what we were talking about earlier, how safety and technology have kind of been really keeping up with one another to make them a really pretty good partnership.
Yeah. That's how I learned when I got into it in the mid 90s. Is we had a passive lens. There wasn't any auto. I mean, I think they were just coming out with auto dark, but it wasn't like refined, and it was way out of my price range as like a 15-year-old kid. But you know, so I mean, you get your rod exactly lined up, or you get your MIG gun right where you need it. Okay, yep, that's where I'm going to start. And you flip your hood down, and then you turn on that flashlight essentially, and then all you can see is this tiny little glowing ball. You didn't have anywhere near the field of view that you have now when you strike an arc. Yeah.
It's amazing what, you know, to me, it's amazing seeing, you know, some of these old school guys that welded that way, to see just the way that they were able to make a beautiful weld and put the rod right where you need it to be. That was the problem. I always kind of skipped around once I got my weld hood down because invariably I had knotted too hard and moved my stick, you know, a quarter inch off the seam. And so I struck the arc, and then I could find the seam again. So I always had to clean up a little mess. Yep.
Kind of finding your way around in the dark.
I mean, somebody I knew had to do that. Not me. Somebody I knew had to do that. It wasn't me.
Asking for a friend.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I mean.
Well, awesome. So you guys, I mean, obviously this system's available on the Rock Mount website.
Yeah. So Rock Mount has partnered with Optrel, and we're actually their vendor for in-person demonstrations. So my reps carry Optrel PAPR systems with them. If you want to try one out, you can contact us, and we can get a rep out there that can bring the systems for you to take a look at, for you to try on. And it, like you said, that the Swiss Air system is something that's really great for all applications, for whether or not you're using it for grinding or clean out or anything like that. And it fits very well underneath a welding hood as well. And then the E3000X system is one that integrates with the welding hood. And one of the great things about that system is that it will integrate with any welding hood in the line. We've got a full line of welding hoods, so you don't have to just get the super deluxe killer attack welding hood. You can get any welding hood in the line that will connect with that. So that gives you a lot of flexibility.
Okay. So if you already have one of their hoods, it'll integrate most likely.
Well, no, it needs to be the PAPR type hood.
Okay, gotcha.
So it has to have the plumbing to it, but it's not just one. They have more than one option.
Okay.
Like they have, for example, they have the Panoramics hood. The one that I showed you earlier, the Panoramics hood. Mm-hmm. They have that in PAPR, but they also have their basic hood, the Neo 550, which is their basic hood, available with PAPR as well. Okay. You know, so you have their entire line has the PAPR optionality to it.
Well, awesome. Okay.
Yeah,
Mark, I'm gonna have to get you back down here for one of these section meetings and have you bring the Papper system with you and do some demos with some of the cool Black Magic rods you guys make.
I'd love to do it, man. Anytime I can get to Florida, I'm game.
Okay, I'll have to set you up sometime, like maybe January, February, when it's nice and chilly out your way, and you
there we go.
Come out here and see the Sunshine State.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good. We'll do it.
Okay. Well, great, man. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come chat with the listeners about, the different safety when it comes to, welding. I mean, like I said it earlier, everybody thinks welding's dark, dirty, and dangerous, but there's certain things you can do. I've been a huge proponent of safety since I got into welding education, just because I've seen a lot of the accidents and incidents and, not wearing appropriate PPE for the job.
Right.
So I'm happy to beat that drum as far as like protect yourself when it comes to your eyes, your skin, your breathing, like everything that we take for granted. Especially when it comes to welding, all the, it's not necessarily a hazardous, dangerous job because there are ways to protect yourself.
Yeah. Well, welding is hard, hot work.
It is.
It's work that's hard. It's work that's hot, but it's work that you can take pride in. And there's no reason to not make sure that you're safe and make sure that you're protecting yourself so that when you're done with your hard, hot work, you can enjoy your life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what being safe is about. Being safe is about, I want to make sure that, not just now, but 10 years, 15 years, 30 years from now, that I feel as good as I can so that I can enjoy the living that I've made. I've had too many friends in the welding industry that have been welding for a long, long time, and they just don't feel good anymore. I've had some friends pass away because they've been welding hard facing inside a chute, for 30 years. And you just know it's that kind of stuff. I don't want that for anybody. Let's protect them.
And that's why I have that conversation with parents. They're like, oh yeah, like I don't know if I want my son or daughter to get into welding because, my grandfather did this and, he did it for 25 years and he lost his vision. And well, yeah, but I mean, we've made significant improvements and changes in safety and all that. It's going back to like, what shade should I wear? Like we have documentation that tells you exactly, what shade of lens you need to be wearing based on the process and the amount of amperage that you're using. A lot of people don't look at that Z49.1 document, but there's a lot of good stuff in there that's going to keep you safe, keep you breathing, keep you being able to see, being able to hear and all that stuff once you get older, once you've been doing this. Because I couldn't picture doing anything other than welding. And I've been doing it for 25 years. I still have 20/20 vision. Last time I went and got my hearing checked, everything was like great across the board. I want to keep being able to do this and like pass it on to the next generation. And if I didn't feel comfortable doing that, like I'd kind of feel like a really shitty person telling everybody how great welding is if, there were serious side effects later on down the road. But if you do it right and you do it safe, you won't have any issues.
Yeah. And it'll extend your career.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the thing, I don't like, there are so many quick tricks or, well, just do it real quick or just do it. No, let's go ahead and protect ourselves. Let's go ahead and put the sleeves on so you don't get a sunburn from that welding arc.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and make sure that you got your lens down. Don't tack just by squinting your eyes closed. Put your hood on when you're tacking. I mean, all those little things that are just kind of common sense, but they're not necessarily common sense. And respiratory protection is one of those for sure too. It just, when you think about it, I wonder if breathing the fumes off molten metal might not be a good thing. Well, yeah, it kind of makes sense that it might not be.
Yeah.
So let's just protect ourselves.
I had that same conversation with myself the other day when I had to cut that stainless pipe. I took it over to my buddy's because he's got like a big heavy duty industrial saw, and I made the first cut. And like I said, I was like, okay, this isn't working. The first cut was okay. I can't get everything lined up on the next cut. So because I got to cut the pipe the opposite direction of where you would typically clamp material. And I was like, okay, this isn't working. All right, I'll just cut it with a cutoff wheel. And I was like, where's the guard for the grinder? Okay, well, I've been using a cutoff wheel and a grinder long enough. I can get by without it. And I was like, you know what? No, let me just pack this up, bring it back over to my school because I've got my face shield over there. I've got a welding jacket. I've got the right gloves. I got guards on my grinders. My hearing protection's over there. Let me just take this thing 5 minutes down the road and do it right because I know that if it's real quick. Like that's usually when something goes wrong. I'm going to skip safety for a minute just because I'll knock this out in a couple minutes. That's when something's going to happen.
I had this old guy in a little town in rural Texas that he had a little welding shop, and he worked for all the farmers in the area and that kind of thing. And he was showing me this tool that he was really, really proud of. And I was like, he's like, man, I don't know why more people don't do it. He had taken the guard off a 9-inch grinder and put a chop saw blade on it, a 14-inch chop saw blade.
Holy shit.
And was using that to cut stuff. Yeah. I saw your face. That was my look, because he says, yeah, man, I don't know why more people don't do this. And I'm thinking to myself, I know why, because that's just about as dangerous as anything you can do. But there are people out there that do that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah,
and that's why OSHA has to do what they do.
Yeah, I used to do pre-manufactured metal buildings, and we'd have to cut roof panels and stuff. And my buddy tells me one day, he's like, "Oh yeah, go get the grinder in there with a saw blade on it." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Just go get the grinder with the saw blade on it." So I walk into the I thought it was some kind of newfangled tool. I walk into the trailer that we had out there. And sure enough, there is a 6-inch grinder with a 7-inch skill saw blade on it. And I brought it back to him, and I was like, is this what you're talking about? And he's like, yeah, just cut all this. I was, no, I'm not cutting anything with this. This is a death wheel.
Right.
No, there's no freaking way. This blade is not meant to be on this tool.
Yeah, that thing an electric grinder spins at about 4 times the RPM that saw is supposed to.
Exactly. And I was like, I don't care if I'm cutting like sheet metal and all. That's not happening. I'll wait. I'll go get a nibbler, and I'm going to do it that way. I'm not spinning this death wheel.
Oh man. Oh my goodness.
But there's people out there that'll do it.
Yeah.
And no guard. Because you can't put a 6-inch guard on a 7-inch, saw blade. Or 7 1/4 inch. Yeah, I was like, that's not happening.
What could go wrong? Well,
a lot in an instant.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of those things, that the last thing I want is for something to go wrong and for it to be permanent, because those are the kind of things that, those are the kind of things that keep me up at night with my guys that are out there and that are doing this all the time. I want them to be safe, and I want them to, go home with all their fingers and toes attached, and just like what we're talking about. I don't want them to, all of my guys have safety training with regard to welding. Yeah, we're a sales company, but we also want to make sure that my guys all weld, they all grind, they all know how to use the tools. And I don't want them to burn themselves, and I don't want them to, Mark, I cut my finger off, and I don't want to hear that.
No.
I don't want to get that phone call.
Not only that, they can help educate the client, because there's a lot of people out there that have been doing it the wrong way, because that's the way we've always done it. We've been doing it this way for 20 years, and I'm not changing it now. No, you can take a minute, educate the client, and show them exactly why you don't want to do something that way.
Yeah, this is why a 7-inch grinding stone does not work on a 4.5-inch grinder.
Exactly. Yeah. And vice versa.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Well, great, Mark. Once again, it's awesome talking to you. I look forward to bringing you back down here to Orlando to do some more demos.
Sounds good, man. Look forward to it.
Okay, you going to be at FabTech?
I don't know yet. We've had some stuff going that I might have to take care of and miss. I might have to miss it this year, but I'm going to try to be there for at least one day.
Okay, yeah. If you're going to go, just shoot me a message or whatever. Well, I'd be happy to link up with you.
Okay, sounds good, bro.
Awesome, brother. Well, everyone, that concludes this week's episode. I hope to see a bunch of y'all at FabTech in Chicago next week. Hope you'll have a kick-ass week. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.